It was a serene morning, the kind that feels like it came straight out of a postcard. The blue sky contrasted with the crystal-clear waters, and the sound of waves gently breaking on the shore created an almost hypnotic rhythm. Clara stepped out of her rental car and took a deep breath. "This is exactly what I needed," she thought. A whole weekend alone, no meetings, no constant notifications on her phone, no one. Just her, the sea, and the small secluded cabin she had found on a vacation rental site. The cabin was rustic, with weathered wooden walls and windows that creaked in the wind, but it had charm. Clara chose it precisely for its location, a nearly deserted beach, hidden between dunes and palm trees, with only a dirt trail leading to it. It was the perfect place to reconnect with herself. At least, that's what she believed. After organizing her belongings, she decided to take a walk along the beach to explore the area. The first steps on the sand felt like liberation. She felt the soft warmth under her feet, the salty scent of the sea filling her lungs. Clara had always loved the ocean, but it had been years since she had stopped to appreciate its vastness. However, as she walked, something caught her attention. A few meters ahead, there was something written in the sand. The words, slightly blurred by the wind, formed a short but unsettling message. "Do not come back." Clara froze, furrowing her brow. There was no one nearby. She turned around, looking back, but the beach was completely empty. Maybe it was a joke. Kids, tourists, or even locals could have written it. Still, she felt a slight chill run down her spine. There was something disconcerting about those words. "It must be in my head," she told herself as she kept walking. But from that moment on, the feeling of being watched never left her. When she returned to the cabin, she tried to distract herself. She prepared a simple dinner and opened a book she had brought along. The words on the page seemed to dance before her eyes, but her mind couldn't focus. Outside, the wind blew hard, making the tree branches tap against the windows. A peculiar sound began to catch her attention. Something was scratching at the wooden door. Clara froze. It wasn't the typical sound of branches or the wind. It was as if someone were trying to get in. Gathering her courage, she stood up and walked to the door. When she opened it, there was nothing but emptiness. Sand from the beach had accumulated on the cabin steps, but there were no signs of anyone. "The wind is playing tricks on me," she thought, though she knew there was more to it. She slammed the door shut and locked it. The next morning, Clara decided to take another walk along the beach. She needed to face this unease and remind herself why she was there, to relax. However, when she reached the same spot where she had found the message the day before, her heart raced. Another message had been written, this time more clearly, "I warned you." This time, Clara couldn't laugh it off. Her breathing grew heavy, and her eyes scanned the beach for some explanation. But once again, there was no one. It was impossible for someone to have written it without leaving footprints in the sand, she thought. She looked back at the palm trees lining the beach. The trees swayed gently, but there were no signs of life. With a knot in her stomach, she hurried back to the cabin. On the way, her mind raced. Who was doing this? She tried to rationalize the situation, but everything seemed to conspire against her. When she arrived at the cabin, she found something even more disturbing. Objects she was sure she had left organized were out of place. Her suitcase, which she had left in the bedroom, was now open in the living room. A glass she had used the night before was shattered on the floor. And once again, there was sand inside the cabin, as if someone had walked in while she was gone. Fear began to turn into paranoia. Clara closed all the windows and locked the door again, double-checking to be sure. Even so, the feeling that something was wrong never left her. That night, the whispers began. At first, she thought it was the sound of the wind, but the voices were distinct, though she couldn't understand what they were saying. They seemed to come from everywhere, as if the cabin itself were murmuring something incomprehensible. Clara covered her ears, but the whispers continued, echoing in her mind. On the third day, the tension reached its peak. Clara decided to leave the cabin as soon as the sun rose, hoping that daylight would bring some comfort. But as she stepped onto the sand, she realized she was not alone. Something was written again, and this time, the words made her feel a paralyzing chill. Claire Thief, her name. Someone knew who she was. How was that possible? Trembling, she ran to the nearest village, where she found a small bar with some local residents. She tried to explain what was happening, but the disapproving looks and the uncomfortable silence of those present made her feel even more isolated. Finally, an older man, with tired eyes and a grave expression, approached her. "You should have listened to the warning," he said. Clara stared at him, confused. The man told a story that made her blood run cold. Many years ago, a young woman had disappeared on that same beach. Before vanishing, locals reported that she mentioned strange messages appearing in the sand, messages that seemed to come to life. "They say the beach doesn't want intruders," he concluded. "And when it warns you, you'd better listen." Despite the advice, Clara couldn't simply leave. Something greater seemed to draw her back to that place, an invisible force preventing her from abandoning the mystery. When she returned to the cabin, she found one last message, clearer than all the others. "It's too late." That night, Clara decided she needed to confront her fear. She grabbed a flashlight and headed to the beach. The darkness was almost complete, except for the pale glow of the moon and the beam of light from her flashlight. The waves lazily lapped at the sand, but the silence around her was oppressive. "Who's there?" she shouted. The answer came, but not as she expected. The sand began to move before her eyes, as if invisible hands were writing, "Now you're one of us." The video ends with the image of the empty cabin and the deserted beach at dawn. Clara had vanished, and the only thing that remains is the echo of the mystery waiting for its next victim. Want to know more about this story and many others we still have to share? Then don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Every day, a new story comes straight from our mysterious archive, filled with tales and accounts we've gathered from various sources. Cases with stories that will give you chills. Also, don't forget to share this video with that friend of yours who loves a good mystery.